Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Storytime with Rob. I hope you've had a great week so far, and I hope it continues to be wonderful. We have some great weather this week, and I hope you enjoy it. Today's story I think you're going to like. It's one that many of you may get, especially towards the end, but some of you may not. So anyway, it is called The Anatomy of a Hypochondriac. And if you young people don't know what a hypochondriac is, get your phone out and Google it, or ask your parents what that is. I would tell you it's not a great thing. So anyway, here we go. 37 years young, too young to be dying, and yet the symptoms of terminal heart disease were unmistakable. She told friends that her life now hung by a thread which might snap at any moment. And she went to bed and waited to die, and did not. Instead, she became an invalid, a fearful captive of the fatal symptoms that strangely refused to kill her. So many symptoms, with but one source: psychoneurosis. It was all in her mind. And then, this is the anatomy of a hypochondriac. The peculiar illness began when she was about 17. Her wealthy, socially ambitious parents had plans for her. She had her own plans, however, which included independence from her parents. While I do not mean to suggest that the young lady was playing sick, it must be noted that virtually all her illnesses followed family arguments, as though sickness had become her subliminal defense against parental manipulation. At age 33, she finally left home, got her own place to live, got happy. Her family frustrations gone. So fled her psychosomatic swooning. This bliss lasted 3 years. And for 3 years she was an achiever, a woman of responsibility and boundless energy, whose only aches and pains were actually legitimate ones. You, the investigator of her case history, must be alert at this point. You must watch for that moment at which she lapsed into her former self. She was 36 when it happened. Palpitations, respiratory difficulty, sick at the sight of food, and within months she was bedridden, her pulse frighteningly rapid, and there she stayed. On occasion her condition grew suddenly worse, and the occasions were almost always predictable. Unwelcome visitors routinely inspired headaches and chest pains and gasping for breath. By now, apparently, her psychoneurosis had become a well-oiled problem-solving machine. She may even have understood it at one level or another, although outwardly she believed herself to be constantly at the brink of death, meaning she could die at any moment. 37 years old, invalid, anxiously awaiting the dread moment her heart would drop out from under her. And one day it did. She was 90. Her illness really was psychosomatic. You see, for 53 years, more than half a century, she lived in bed for nothing. True, her confinement accomplished certain things. It brought the people she wanted to her bedside. As her sudden attacks drove the unwanted away, her bed even proved a comfortable vantage point from which she could observe and administer the work of others. Yet, the psychoneurosis which held her prisoner for most of her life had deeper roots still. You remember those 3 years during which she was not plagued by an imaginary illness? Those years she had spent alleviating the suffering of others. Most of that time at the Crimean War front. For the passion her parents tried to suppress, a profession then regarded as unbecoming was nursing. The young lady was happy only as an active nurse, otherwise was hopeless, helpless hypochondriac. Yet so astonishing was her physical and emotional strength, her sheer endurance as a nurse during the Crimean War, that nursing became a respectable occupation through her example. The world then forgot, or chose to ignore, that she spent the entire rest of her life, more than half a century, in bed, in fear, in vain. And you know her as Florence Nightingale. Only now you know the rest of the story. Hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have a fabulous and festive rest of your week. And until tomorrow, be safe.